Too late. Too late. Got you. Got you. Tell for the spin. Well done. You're getting lucky.
You are worthy to be praised, so we thank you, Heavenly Father, for this moment. You know the reason why we are gathered here this evening. And I pray, oh Heavenly Father, that everything will go to your honor and your glory. I pray this evening that you will touch our hearts and give us that spirit of love, the spirit of truth, and the spirit of understanding. I give you all the praise this evening because you are God and you are God alone. I thank you, O Heavenly Father, that you will continue to watch over us and keep us as we gather here. Keep us safe, dear God. Let no evil befall us, dear God, because you have said no weapon formed against us shall prosper. And oh God, I know you want to renege on your words this evening. So I thank you in what I name, but in Jesus' almighty name. This evening I pray for our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, wheresoever he might be at this moment. Watch over him and keep him safe, dear God. My God, anything not planted by your own hand, may you throw into the sea of forgetfulness. Remember his entire family, dear God. Remember all the parliamentarians this evening. Remember Mr. Rowley. Remember Mr. Hussein this evening, the mayor and the deputy mayor. May they continue to work for the good of our country this evening, because we need you more than ever. We need you as never a time before. Look at the situation of our land, dear God, and there is no one else can do it but you. When we offer our prayers, oh God, may we lift up this land to you, dear God. And may we ask you for peace and love, dear God, because we need that in our lives today, oh God. Look at Trinidad and Tobago, my God. Watch over us, oh. Take charge, dear God. Keep us with your love. Not the love of man, but the love of Almighty God. Because he's a loving God, he went on that cross for us, dear God. And he gave his life for us. that we might live and have life more abundantly. Watch over us this evening. My mouth is enough to give you all the praise and the thanks, Lord. For this gathering this evening, I will call it a congregation. I will call it a house of love, because love has brought us here this evening. I pray, oh Heavenly Father, for the youths of this land, dear God. Watch over them and keep them. Speak to their hearts, dear God. Talk to them, Jesus, in the stillness of the night. My God and my Redeemer. They're going down the wrong road, dear God. And only you can do it, Jesus. My God and my Redeemer this evening. Every church, every chapel, remember them. As we pray for the land in a mighty, mighty, mighty way, oh God. Pass from bench to bench this evening, from chair to chair this evening, and touch our hearts. Give us that spirit of peace, that spirit of true love. And watch over us as we go through. You have brought us safely, and I know you are going to stay in our midst this evening. And when we are about to leave, dear God, may you take root this evening. These are all of the blessings I ask. Only in your adorable name, only in your great name, only in your conquering name. So I give you all the praise and the thanks. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bradshaw. Kindly have your seats, please. To start, I would like to sincerely apologize and make an adjustment to our program this afternoon. We had on our program the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West and Attorney General, and the Honorable Faris Alwari, who is at this present time in the Senate fighting for our cause. So we would like to have him excused. I don't know what time we will finish here, but once he's finished, he'll be here. So I want to sincerely apologize on his behalf. Chairman of the San Fernando West constituency and newly re-elected chairman, Deputy Mayor Mr. Junior Regalo, Deputy Political Leader for Great Party, Mrs. Joan New Williams, the Honorable Randall Mitchell, Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, Minister of Housing and Development. I want you to give a special welcome to the Honorable Sherry-Ann Critchlow-Coburn, Member of Parliament for Lobino Bonnet West and Minister of Social Development and Family Services. I want to acknowledge a few members here today. I want to acknowledge the Minister of Health, the Honorable Terence Dialsing, the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, who has the hot seat in Parliament, Mr. Esmond Ford. I want to also acknowledge the former Mayor of Huddersfield, Mr. John Rahal. The Mayor of Point Fortin, Mr. Clive Paul. The General Secretary of the People's National Movement, Mr. Ashton Ford. Members of the San Fernando West Executive and members of the San Fernando East Executive. chairman and members of the San Fernando East Executive, also the chairman and members of the Point-a-Pier constituency. And I want to acknowledge the chairman of the Urupuch constituency and his team. All you distinguished ladies and gentlemen, oh, I don't see the Honorable Dr. Laverne Francis. Welcome, sir. I want to acknowledge all you councillors present on the San Fernando City Corporation, all the older men. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the People's National Movement, who took time off to be here this evening to support our party. Members of the media who is here to carry our message. And all those who are listening on the radio, welcome this evening to our meeting at the Scout House Evacade in San Fernando. I just want to call upon the chairman of the San Fernando. Okay, you all kindly stand. Christopher Rowley. Now I want you all to know the PNM is a disciplined party and we must conduct ourselves. I know you all are excited, the Prime Minister is here. I am excited, my heart is beating very fast. So I would like to call now on the chairman of the San Fernando West constituency and deputy mayor to bring greetings this afternoon.
Before I start, I would like to get some advice. I'm sure you all have seen the young man playing national anthem. What do you think I should do about that hairstyle? I have been having great difficulty in the past year or so. I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, it's a strain on the shampoo, a strain on the water, the soap and everything, as well as his mother. So I depend on my colleagues that advise me. They can meet me quietly after the meeting and tell me how to deal with it. Rastafari! His Worship the Mayor, Alderman Kassim Hussein, Prime Minister, the Honorable Keith Rowley, the Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, the Honorable Randall Mitchell, the Member of Parliament for Lupino Bonnet West, the Honorable Sherian Kabun, Deputy Leader of the People's National Movement, Mr. John Yule Williams, the General Secretary, Mr. Ashton Ford, Members of Parliament, Members of the Senate, former members of the Senate as well, and former parliamentarians, mayors who is visiting here this evening, chairman of various corporations, members of the San Fernando West Executive, San Fernando East Executive, Point-a-Pier Executive, and visiting constituencies, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a profound sense of pride that I begin by saying welcome to the constituency of San Fernando West. I am quickly reminded of the proud record San Fernando West has and the significant role San Fernando West has played in the evolution of this great party, celebrating 60 years of service to the people of Trinidad and Jamaica. I'm reminded of a symposium on Caribbean culture organized by the Naprima Old Boys Association in 1955 and held at the then Town Hall, where the featured speaker was Dr. Eric Williams. After the meeting, special invited guests were taken to the home of Dr. Ibn Musahid for light refreshments. It was at that gathering that the question of uniting for a special political cause arose. I'm reminded of a meeting held at 14B Royal Road by a group comprising of Dr. Eric Williams, Mr. Kamal Mohammed, Mr. George Montano, and Mr. Winston Mahabe, to name a few. This group was known as the Bachats and were the front runner to the People's National Movement. I'm reminded that Dr. Winston Mahabe went on to win the seat for San Fernando West in 1956. I'm reminded of the contribution of El Mahabia, who served this constituency with distinction from 1966 to 1986. I'm reminded of the development of San Fernando West and the major institutions that exist here, such as Nabrema Bowl, Skinner Park, our schools that continue to shine like a beacon in the national front, and SAPA, all of which owe their success as well as their existence to the PNM. And I also look forward to the development of our waterfront. The PNM continues to be of great significance to the quality of life shared by the people of San Fernando West. On the question on the state of the economy, we in San Fernando West await the measures taken by the government and a positive outcome. But at the same time, we should be commended for our patience and how we have been tempered by a sense of responsibility. San Fernando West has played its part and will continue to play our part by resolutely standing up for the principles of good governance, which has been the foundation of this great party. It's against this background that I formally welcome you to the constituency of San Fernando West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman of the San Fernando West constituency, Mr. Junior Rebello. And we move on to our next speaker, but before I move on, I just want to, the cemetery is right next door, and I want to go home safe tonight, so I want to acknowledge the members of the Diego Martin West constituency. Before I introduce the speaker, I want you all to know that the San Fernando City Corporation has acknowledged a lot of issues we have to deal with, like traffic, the homelessness, and a lot more. And we have been working on every one of those projects. And we have set up a volunteer network, and the idea came from the Honorable Prime Minister in his victory speech to have volunteers in our corporation, and we decided in the city to launch that volunteer network, and we have over 300 volunteers in all spheres of life, and we have taken the first step to go forward. Out of this volunteer network, we have decided to deal with the homelessness in San Fernando. And the reason why I'm speaking about this is because I want to approach the minister for some advice and some funding, of course. We have volunteers which are contractors, businessmen, and somebody donated a parcel of land right on the waterfront there next to the Revival Time Assembly. And a few contractors, I don't want to name their names because they don't want it to be public, they're just doing it out of their hearts. And we are going to deal with the homelessness. We are going to move a motion on council so that we must feed the homeless at that venue and not on the streets of San Fernando where the people come to feed them. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Sherry-Ann Critchlow-Coburn, Member of Parliament from the and Minister of Social Services and Development.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Mayor and Deputy Mayor of San Fernando, my Cabinet colleague, the Honorable Randall Mitchell, MP for San Fernando East, Cabinet colleagues in the audience, Members of Parliament, Mayors, ex-mayors, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished invited guests, members of the media, good evening. It is indeed a pleasure to be here in San Fernando this evening. They say wise men come from the east, but I am happy to be here in the South this evening. It is also a privilege and an honor to be asked to speak here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And it is very timely that this is taking place as we, the members of the People's National Movement, celebrate 60 years. The People's National Movement has always stood for caring. It is a party that has always cared for the citizens, and it has dedicated itself to the protection of the poor, the indigent, and the vulnerable. And it has always recognized that the state has a role to play in protecting and caring for its citizens. And the underpinning principle that guides the People's National Movement is the principles of human rights and equality. It is therefore not surprising, ladies and gentlemen, that this government's social sector policies, the aims are one, to transform the social sector landscape by reducing and ultimately eradicating poverty, improving social justice by partnering with the NGOs, the community-based organizations, and the faith-based organizations as we seek to develop a new system of social justice and also assisting in the provision of social services. And last but by no means least, our aim is to ensure the full integration of persons with disabilities into the society and to facilitate the maximization of their full potential. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services look towards the eradication of poverty. The government's stated intention is to ensure that every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago has an opportunity for a decent standard of living. And so, successive governments would have expended billions of dollars on the social sector. We would have also introduced a wide range of programs. But the sad reality, ladies and gentlemen, is that poverty rates have increased. And the last survey that was done would have indicated that 24.5% of our population are poor. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you must be asking yourselves the question, why? If successive governments would have expended billions of dollars on the social sector and would have introduced a number of programs, why do we have an increase in poverty and why do we have 24.5% of our population being poor? Ladies and gentlemen, there are two key reasons. One, there has been a high targeting error in our social programs. And two, what we have found is that a percentage of all our programs, persons who are not poor have benefited, and a large segment of those who are in fact poor have not benefited from these programs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, therein lies the primary reasons for us still being in this situation with respect to poverty. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, being cognizant of all of this, has decided that we are going to shift to data-driven decision-making. For too long, decisions have been made without ample data. So we have decided that as we make our decisions and we move forward, we are going to be making those decisions based on data. Our targeting is also going to be evidence and data driven. Recently, we would have conducted a survey of living conditions, and although it has not been approved as yet, we are guided by the findings of that survey. And what that survey has done, it has allowed us to use GIS to map Trinidad and Tobago. And we at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Service, ladies and gentlemen, can tell you in every region in Trinidad and Tobago where the pockets of poverty are. So we are now in a position to specifically target our programs to those areas because we know where our poor and our indigent are located. That is a great development, ladies and gentlemen. Recognizing this, we have also started to develop regional poverty profiles. We have already completed the poverty profile for Superior, and we are going to ensure that we complete the other 13 by the end of this year. Ladies and gentlemen, it was very interesting to learn from that survey also that poverty in Trinidad and Tobago is more related to low educational attainment and low salaries than unemployment. This suggests to us that what we need to do is to focus on building the capacity of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly our poor and our indigent. So we are at present exploring introducing distance learning. A number of our poor and indigent live in rural areas. It is difficult at times for them to benefit from the normal program. So what we are exploring is using the technology and having distance learning programs available to those persons who live in the rural areas. We have established a number of telecenters in those areas, so it would not be difficult, ladies and gentlemen, because we already have the hardware and the technology in those areas. And of course, we are going to seek to inculcate a culture of entrepreneurship in our people, particularly the poor and the indigent. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have been doing at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is providing support to micro and small enterprises through grants. We have provided the seed grant, which is showing empowerment through entrepreneurial development, and the micro enterprise loans. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had 666 groups benefit from this program, and with respect to the seed, we would have had 2,041 persons benefit from those programs, ladies and gentlemen. What this means for us in our drive to reduce poverty is that there are over 2,600 persons and families in Trinidad and Tobago who are becoming self-sufficient as the days go by, because they are involved in expanding their micro and small businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are here tonight who may have applied for one of these grants and may have been waiting for some time, let me explain why that may have happened. Over the last 2 years, what would have happened is that the ministry would have accepted applications from the numbers that could not have been sustained with the sums that were allocated to the ministry. What has happened therefore is that we currently have 1,234 persons who have been approved but are awaiting payment to the tune of $12.6 million. Ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that this is critical. So what we have been doing at the ministry is that we have been liaising with the Ministry of Finance to identify areas in our ministry, in our votes, where there are funds that can be extended so that we can in fact grant the necessary approvals to these persons. Ladies and gentlemen, so as you would appreciate, these programs are critical to the development of sustainable employment among our poor and indigent. So the Ministry of Social Development will continue with these programs because it is a means of self-sufficiency and wealth generation. But what we are going to be doing different, ladies and gentlemen, there will be equity in the approval and distribution process for these grants. We are also going to be targeting areas where poverty is predominant, so that what we are going to do is in the areas with communities where the poverty is high, we are going to specifically target those areas. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, greater emphasis will be placed on the development aspect of these programs. We are going to ensure before, or at least within 1 month of being granted these grants, persons are going to be trained. They are going to be trained to do their accounts, marketing of their products, and all of the necessary skills that they need to have to run a successful business. What has happened in the past is that persons would have been, approval would have been given and persons would have got the grants and they would not have had the necessary training. Ladies and gentlemen, in situations like that, business can fall by the wayside. So we are going to ensure that all persons who are approved are going to be exposed to the necessary training. Ladies and gentlemen, 15% of the global population is comprised of persons with disabilities. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, as of 2011, 4% of our population, or 52,444 persons, were persons living with disabilities. The research tells us that disabilities and poverty reinforce and perpetuate each other. Ladies and gentlemen, just as we are dealing with poverty, it means we also have to address the issues associated with persons with disabilities. And we also recognize, one, there is a lack of reliable data, and two, there are significant barriers to persons living with disabilities having access to education, mobility, and employment. So, ladies and gentlemen, this government, through the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, is going to attempt to create a more inclusive society where there are equal opportunities for our persons with disability to come into mainstream society. So what we have been doing, we have been collaborating with key stakeholders to facilitate treating with these issues in a meaningful way. So we have decided and have started work on developing a national register of persons with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, at present, if there was a national disaster in Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow, we would not know where to locate our persons with disability to take them to safety. This national register is going to ensure that we identify all persons living with disabilities, where they are located, what their special needs are, and we are also going to make efforts to treat with them in a very meaningful way. So what have we done? We have a draft national policy on persons with disabilities, but we have reviewed it to ensure that it's in conformity with the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Now this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, because Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Trinidad and Tobago is going to be expected within the next 16 months to report to the UN on what we would have done to ensure that we meet the requirements of the convention. But the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is that given our financial constraints and the economic downturn, we will not be able to meet all of the requirements. So what the ministry has done, we have met with the UNDP and its representatives and the representatives from the US Embassy, and they have given us guidance as to how we can proceed. And what do we have to do? We have to ensure that we develop plans and timelines for all of the requirements that must be met in that convention. And when we have to make our report to the UN, once we submit those plans and those timelines, which clearly demonstrate that Trinidad and Tobago intends to treat seriously with the issue of persons with disability, and that we are in fact on course, then the UN is going to accept our report and there will be no problems, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
What is of paramount importance to the UN is that countries who are signatories demonstrate very clearly a willingness and a seriousness to in fact meet all of those requirements. And we are going to do that, ladies and gentlemen, under this government and at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Ladies and gentlemen, I would have attended a function that was held in honor of persons with disabilities. And I remember one of the gentlemen saying, live in my world for 5 minutes. And ladies and gentlemen, if any one of you were to live in their world for 5 minutes, you would not make it. If I ask any one of you, close your eyes and come up on the stage, your first reaction will be halt, because it is a scary situation. Our persons who live with disabilities in this country live in that world every day. Persons who are hard of hearing or hearing impaired sit in front of a television every night. The news is there. They do not know what is happening. Persons who are blind cannot move from point A to point B. Our roads are not set up in a manner, or pavements, to facilitate the movement of persons with wheelchairs. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take steps to seek to address those issues. But one of the critical things that we need to do is to establish and approve a national sign language dictionary. Ladies and gentlemen, if that is done, children can go to school. Persons who are hearing impaired or hard of hearing can come to any government agencies, because we can then have persons who are now certified in signing, working there even if it's 1 day a week, so that they can come and be provided with a service. When they go to the hospital, they can interact with that person and know what the doctor is saying to them, and the doctor can hear what their issues are. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you this evening, this is one of the more critical things that needs to be done, and we have already made contact with the DEA, that's the Deaf Association, and they have developed a draft national dictionaries of sign language. We have also been having discussions with representatives at the Ministry of Education, and ladies and gentlemen, I expect that very soon this national sign language dictionary is going to be approved, and persons living with disability who are hearing impaired or hard of hearing are going to be more included in the mainstream society. Ladies and gentlemen, we come now to the need for a center that provides diagnostic, rehabilitative, and therapeutic services for persons with disabilities. The government of Trinidad and Tobago would have expended millions of dollars to build a national enrichment center at Castle Field. Ladies and gentlemen, this center was officially launched in July 2015. However, when we got into office and attempted to operationalize the center, we recognized that we could not. This contract was given to SIS, and what they did is that they would have constructed the center, but not in accordance with the design brief. First big mistake, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, this is a center that is being constructed for persons with disability. And an elevator was constructed that cannot accommodate a wheelchair. The gymnasium was constructed with all the necessary beams. Persons with disabilities who have to do therapy need those beams. The therapeutic pool was not constructed properly. The bathrooms were not constructed in accordance with the established standards. Ladies and gentlemen, completion certificates were not granted. The building was also found to be not in compliance with the USH Act. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, while this center is critical for persons living with disabilities, we could not have operationalized it. But we didn't leave it there. What we have done is that we have brought in a QS, and we have identified all of the remedial work that need to be done to bring this center up to par, to bring it in line with the required standards. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already identified all of the remedial works. We have even gotten some contractors on board, and work has started. And we expect by December of this year to have that center open to the public and partially operationalized. Ladies and gentlemen, I come now to the ministry's core responsibilities. And our core responsibility is the delivery of social welfare services to this indigent, poor, and vulnerable groups in Trinidad and Tobago. And ladies and gentlemen, when I finish with this list, I am sure you will say, this government is really providing for our poor and indigent. We have the Senior Citizens Grant. This is a pension that is paid to persons 65 and over who qualify, and they are paid $3,500 a month. We have our disability grant of $1,800, which is paid to persons who are deemed to be 100% disabled. We have our public assistance grants. This grant is paid to an adult who is ill and unable to work, or children who are needy. These may be children whose parents may have died, a father may have been incarcerated, and they need that financial assistance. And we pay, ladies and gentlemen, from $1,250 to $1,725, depending on the size of the family. Ladies and gentlemen, we also provide assistance for medical equipment. Eyeglasses, $2,500. Wheelchairs and hearing aids, $7,500. Prosthesis, $40,000. There's a special child grant, ladies and gentlemen, of $1,100 per month that is paid for 1 year. We have the education grant, and this is to assist secondary school children to go to school, to pay their transport, and that we pay $500 per month during that child's tenure at secondary school. We have the household items grant, where $6,000 would have been granted to persons to assist them in purchasing beds, appliances, and that sort of thing. We have a dietary grant, ladies and gentlemen, and this is intended for persons who have special needs. They would have been prescribed specific drugs because of their condition, maybe diabetes or heart disease, and we pay $600 per month. There's a pharmaceutical grant for persons who cannot get their drugs on the CDA. There's a funeral grant. If God forbid one of your relatives may die and you cannot afford to bury them, we would grant you $7,000 to assist with your burial. Ladies and gentlemen, and for persons who may be the victims of a disaster, we give each member of that family $1,000 to assist them in replacing their clothing. And for the children in that household, we grant $700 to those at the primary school level and $1,000 to those at the secondary school level. And ladies and gentlemen, we also have a housing assistance grant. So for those who are poor and indigent and their house may have fallen into disrepair, we grant $15,000 for the house repairs, $15,000 for electrical wiring, and $15,000 for plumbing. And for those whose house may have been destroyed as a result of a disaster, they are granted $20,000. Ladies and gentlemen, in these difficult times, tell me, isn't your government doing a wonderful job? But with all of that, ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that persons are not always aware of what is available and how to access it. So what we are doing, we are going to the 41 constituencies in Trinidad and Tobago with our outreach programs to increase awareness and the knowledge of what the Ministry of Social Development provides, what are the qualifying criteria, and how you can access it. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you here would have interacted with the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. I am sure at some point in time you would have expressed concern about the timeliness of the delivery of our service and the quality of our customer service. We recognize that we need to improve in those areas. So what we have been doing, we have been looking at the one-stop shop concept. Currently, if you come into the ministry and you need to access a food grant, disability, and house repairs, you go to 3 different sections. Ladies and gentlemen, very soon that is supposed to be a thing of the past. When you interact with a customer service representative, you will deal with all of the reasons why you came in here. All of the grants to be applied for in one department. We are also going to implement standards of performance, turnaround times, and the level of customer service that each person working in the ministry is expected to adhere to. We are also going to establish a hotline. So you, ladies and gentlemen, can call the ministry, you can commend us where necessary, you can complain where necessary, you can get a status report on your application, and you can also just make inquiries. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, we are also going to ensure that all of our employees are trained. Those who need training in customer service, those who need training on our products, they are all going to be trained so that at the end of the day, customers' issues can be addressed and application received and approved in a timely manner and customer-friendly environment. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have seen recently in the papers a number of advertisements concerning our biometric system. The ministry would have introduced a biometric system in 2014 because we recognized there was a need to harmonize and streamline the delivery of all of our service brands into one integrated brand card. Ladies and gentlemen, so we would have sent out tenders and we would have contracted in consortium to provide us with this biometric card smart card system. The system is built on two platforms. The biometric platform, where we use the fingerprint as the unique identifier, and the financial platform, which supports the transfer of payments to clients and manage the interface between the bank and the biometric platform. Ladies and gentlemen, this system would have cost the government of Trinidad and Tobago $67.4 million to implement. Enrollment was supposed to commence from March 2014 and end in September 2014. But ladies and gentlemen, previous administration did not adhere to this. So what we found is that there were numerous delays as we were walking along the approval of the enrollment path. Ladies and gentlemen, what would have happened is that the ministry would have expended approximately $1 million on fast-track options within that system that has never been used. And ladies and gentlemen, what is more worrying is that as March 2016, which is 5 months after the expiration of the contract, the ministry would have only enrolled 61,848 persons, or 35% of our grant recipients. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when the contractors would have indicated that their recurrent cost is $29.7 million, this was on this understanding that the ministry would have had its 170,000 plus grant recipients all enrolled. Ladies and gentlemen, that has not happened. So we ended up with a situation where the contract has expired and only 35% of our grant recipients have been enrolled. Ladies and gentlemen, the ministry, recognizing that something was not as it should be, would have embarked on an exercise. This exercise would have determined that there were 4,000 persons who were in receipt of the food card who were not eligible for the food card. Ladies and gentlemen, by removing those 4,000 persons from the system, we would have saved the government $25 million annually. Ladies and gentlemen, in March of 2016, when we looked at the figures, we realized we needed to intensify that drive. And what we would have done, we would have placed ads in the newspaper, personnel from the ministry would have been in the print, would have been on the television, indicating to persons that they needed to come in to enroll. And the purpose of that was to determine whether the persons who were in receipt of the food card were in fact still eligible for those food cards. And we would have advised the public that we were going to place a hold on those cards if persons failed to come in by the middle of April. And ladies and gentlemen, this was driven by the fact that we had estimated that there were 13,000 persons who had not come in as part of that enrollment drive. So the hold was placed on those cards in mid-April. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you today that as of May 2016, because what we would have done, we would have further investigated those figures to ensure that the figures that we have were correct. And what we have determined is that as at the end of May 2016, there are 15,641 persons who have not come in for enrollment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the ministry would have done all it's in its power to try to contact these persons. And think about it. The food card is intended to provide nutritional meals to persons who cannot afford to buy food for themselves. Would you have your card placed on hold for 2 months and not come forward if you were in fact eligible for the grant of that card? Ask yourselves that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, heavy weather was made by some people in the opposition and in the media, indicating that there may have been persons who may not have been able to come forward. But ladies and gentlemen, those persons would have been accessing their funds every month. The very person who would have gone to the supermarket for them could have contacted the ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, I say to you this evening that we at the ministry, based on the trend, we have the strong belief that at the very least 14,000 of that 15,641 persons are no longer or were never eligible for the grant of the food.
You are Commissioner of Police.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, on the 15th of July, the 3-month extension that we have granted will expire, and persons who do not come in will be removed from the system. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying to you this evening, if 14,000 persons are in fact removed from the system, it is going to save us $110 million annually. Ladies and gentlemen, think of the number of persons who are really in need that can benefit from that $110 million. Ladies and gentlemen, we currently have 24,000 plus persons who receive payment and 3,158 who receive payment based on the biometric system. We have asked our internal auditor to do an extensive audit of every one of those files, because what we have recognized is that during the enrollment process, where a review of every person should have been done, it wasn't done in all instances, because when we would have requested the means test forms, it was not available. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and I do this based on, I remember my father saying to me when I was working at the NIP, we have a responsibility because we are entrusted with public funds to keep it secure for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, these public funds that the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services are viewed in the same manner. And we are going to ensure that when we expend public funds, it is in the best interest of people of Trinidad and Tobago, and there is no wastage and mismanagement and leakages. Ladies and gentlemen, as I would have indicated before, our contract with the vendors for the biometric system came to an end in October 2015. But we were forced to continue on a month-to-month basis because the current bank has indicated that the equipment that we use with the debit card system has become obsolete, and they are not prepared to issue any more cards. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who may be waiting for a permanent food card, you are affected by this. The bank's refusal to issue additional cards because the system has been deemed obsolete. Ladies and gentlemen, we also looked at the fact that we have a system that really only services 3,158 persons of our 170,000 grant recipients. And to add to that, one of the provider of the biometric system would have indicated to us that they are increasing their maintenance fees. And ladies and gentlemen, listen to the increase. That maintenance fee is going to move from $2.8 million annually to $8.8 million, ladies and gentlemen.
What?
From $2.8 million to $8.8 million. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no way we at the ministry could in good conscience just agree to this. And when we look further, you would have recognized that the Ministry of Social Development, because we are only servicing 3,158 persons with that system, we are expending $2.7 million to pay $1.7 million to 3,158 persons monthly. Ladies and gentlemen, tell me, does that make any sense to you? At our other grants, which are paid by check or direct method payment to the bank, we are expending $273,085 to effect payment to 94,134 persons. So ladies and gentlemen, while some persons may say it's a retrograde step to go back to check, given our current economic situation, I advocate and I will ensure that we go back to this check system until we can find a better way forward with the biometric system. Ladies and gentlemen, does that make sense to you? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reverting to paying that 3,158 grant recipients by check and putting the biometric system on hold. This ministry will be saving our government $2.4 million monthly. That is not cheap. That $2.4 million, ladies and gentlemen, can pay approximately 3,500 persons, give them a food card. That is money better spent as we seek to reduce poverty and to ensure that our poor and indigent are provided with a nutritious meal every day. And there may be some of you, ladies and gentlemen, who may be concerned about check fraud. But let me assure you, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services would have met with the Central Bank, the Bankers Association, representatives from all commercial banks, and we will have shared our security features and codes so as to allow the banks to detect fraudulent checks. And ladies and gentlemen, we see it is working. Because on Friday, when a person would have attempted to cash a fraudulent check, they were captured by the police when the bank called them. So be assured, ladies and gentlemen, as we revert to the check system, our funds will be secure. And I come now, ladies and gentlemen, to the food card. The Targeted Conditional Cash Transfer Program is really a short-term food assistance program that targets the poor and the indigent. Ladies and gentlemen, the TT card, which is the permanent card, is really only intended for needy families, and it is income-based. So what happens when you come into the ministry to apply, a means test is done, and based on the results of the means test, you are either approved or not approved for the food card. But remember, the food card is intended for the poor and the indigent. It's not intended for persons, as my niece would have called me, Auntie, I am in the supermarket and there's a woman here with a coach bag paid with 2 food cards to buy alcohol. That is not the purpose of the food card. It is to ensure that our poor and our indigent can have a nutritious meal. The temporary food card is intended to assist people in the short term, persons who are in dire poverty or persons who would have had a disaster. For example, their homes may have been burnt, everything would have been lost. We provide them with a temporary food card so as to ensure that they can get food to sustain them until things are better. And then there's a developmental component. This component seeks to assist families living in extreme poverty in accessing critical services throughout the sector. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is in the developmental stage as we partner with the other ministries to get this going. Ladies and gentlemen, what we would have discovered when we got into the ministry is that there were a number of irregularities with the food card. further investigation would have brought to the fore that in the initial stages, no assessment was done when persons were granted food cards. They were granted food cards based on the recommendations of community-based organizations or faith-based organizations or some reputable person within the community. The last administration also had a policy position where every MP was given 50 food cards every month for distribution. Ladies and gentlemen, that tells you what would have happened. This government, under the astute leadership of Dr. Christopher Rowley, has said that is no longer going to happen. All food cards will be processed through the ministry and granted by the ministry officers. Ladies and gentlemen, cards were also randomly distributed at outreach programs, particularly in the lead up to elections. So what we have found is that there is a large percentage of persons out there, some may have who have food cards for 7 years, and others who may have had it for shorter periods. Now, ladies and gentlemen, within the ministry, there is a policy which states that persons who have been granted food cards should be reviewed on an anniversary date rotational basis every 6 months. This has not happened. And this information wasn't just forthcoming. It is as we go along and we ask questions and we investigate, we would have determined that this did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. So what has happened? We have persons who are neither poor nor indigent who have access to the monthly payment under the food card. And thank God, there are whistleblowers within the system. And we would have received information from a whistleblower which suggested there was need to investigate this system at one of our regional offices. So we would have asked the internal auditor to go down and do an audit. And ladies and gentlemen, that audit would have revealed that persons were not being reviewed and deactivated as they ought to have been. And what that would have meant is that the government would have overpaid approximately $3 million. Ladies and gentlemen, as a result of that, we have asked for audits to be done throughout the system, and wherever that is found, it is going to be stopped, persons are going to be deactivated, and we are going to ensure that we safeguard the funds of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, I just want to let you know that in keeping with the Prime Minister's address and request, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is in the process of developing a national social mitigation plan. This plan is intended to mitigate the effects of the economic downturn, especially on the poor and the vulnerable. The ministry is collaborating with other social sector ministries and civil society in the development of this plan. As a matter of fact, staff of the ministry are in San Fernando at the Napa River College hosting one of our social dialogues programs where we can gather information from the members of the public, from civil society to inform that plan. And ladies and gentlemen, we expect to have that plan finalized by the end of July for submission to Cabinet. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope, I trust and I pray that I will have assured you here this evening that this government, through the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, is going to transform the landscape in Trinidad and Tobago by reducing poverty. We are going to ensure that the disabled are become inclusive into the included into the society, and we are going to continue to work with the NGOs, the CBOs, and the FBOs to ensure that there is improved service delivery to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and most importantly, we are going to safeguard public funds and ensure that they are expended in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Honorable Minister, and she gave us the facts. So what we need to do is go to the offices and get you the information you need and take full advantage. She sounds like if she's there 9 years now. And it's only 9 months. The next speaker, when he was selected to go up for San Fernando East, everyone was saying that in taking over from the longest serving member of parliament for San Fernando East, Mr. Patrick Manning, that he had a tough act to follow. But I knew, as a lawyer and as a businessman, he was fully capable of managing whatever the party calls on him to do. And with his youth, he brings energy, and into this role he's now carrying in this ministry. And we can clearly see that he's thriving in this position as well as his ministerial portfolio. Without further ado, I invite the Honourable Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, Mr. Fernando.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel at home. It feels so good to be away from the hustle and bustle of Port of Spain. I haven't seen some of you, most of you, for a very long time since the campaign, and I miss you all. So it really, really feels good addressing you here this evening. Let me first acknowledge Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honourable Clifton. Welcome again to San Fernando. Mayor of the City of San Fernando, Alderman Kazem Hussein. And because we're in San Fernando West, let me acknowledge the hard-working Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, Mr. Rowley, Minister of Social Development and Family Services, Mrs. Bishop, all other cabinet ministers, councillors of the San Fernando City Corporation, all other protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all on behalf of the people of San Fernando East to the City of San Fernando to this public meeting at Scout House Building, Lady Hales Avenue. I also want to welcome our listeners on the World Wide Web and those following live on the airwaves on I-95.5, Power 102, Sangit 106.1 and Vibe CT 105. Ladies and gentlemen, these meetings are being arranged to report to the public on what we have been doing as a government for the last 9 months. And you've just heard a very comprehensive report from the Minister of Social Development and Family Services. And you will hear from our Honourable Prime Minister and Leader. And I will report to you the short time I have on what I have been doing at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development for just under 3 months. Ladies and gentlemen, 9 months ago, you elected us to govern this country without fear or favor, malice or ill will. We took that seriously. To govern this country with equity and fairness, to govern equally across Trinidad and Tobago, and we took that very seriously. And we, the People's National Movement, accepted that mandate and we took charge. When we took charge back in September, we faced challenges. We faced many, many, many challenges. Challenges that no new government is happy to face. We met an economy that remained stagnant for the past 5 years. We met an economy where government spending was just totally out of control. We met waste, we met mismanagement. We met a situation of rapidly declining revenues. And we met a situation where our revenue collection was inefficient and bad. We realized early on that we had to take immediate steps to turn this country around. Led by our Honourable Prime Minister and Leader, we had to quickly determine what our true financial position was. On receiving the bleak picture, we grabbed a hold of levers and we took firm control. With time against us, our Prime Minister and his cabinet showed the grit and fortitude that this situation demanded of us. And we've had to make some very, very, very hard decisions to protect and stabilize this nation. Some of those decisions would have caused some discomfort for citizens, that is expected. Decisions that forced us to make certain adjustments, but decisions nonetheless that once made now would ensure that we as a people would enjoy long-term prosperity for our children, our grandchildren, and for us collectively as a country. We have had to change tact in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. No longer can we depend to fund our work program on the Ministry of Finance. We've had to find some very innovative ways to derive revenues from our operations to fund the housing programs. One such method that I want to bring to your attention here tonight is what we call our mortgage conversion caravan. The aims of the mortgage conversion caravan is twofold. One, it sensitizes homeowners, owners of HDC properties, of the benefits of true home ownership. So those members, those HDC homeowners who would be in rental agreements or in rent-to-own agreements or in LTO agreements as a consequence of the HDC developments not being vested properly in the HDC, would be encouraged to convert to a mortgage. The benefits of home ownership, we all know. You own your own home and you have the security, the mental satisfaction that this is yours. You don't have to go to the HDC begging to make adjustments. You want to put up an air-conditioned unit, you want to change a window. You don't have to do that. You want to change the color of your house. You own your property, you can do these things. So far we have visited 9 sites, including East Grove, Edinburgh, Hoover Exchange, Corinth, Oasis, Golconda, Cypress, Greenvale Gardens and Belvedere in Maracas, St. Joseph. And to date, 300 tenants have acquired mortgages to become homeowners, first-time homeowners. But there is a second aspect. Where you, the homeowner, converts to a mortgage, we, the HDC, receive the funding that we need to continue our home construction program. Our mortgage collection estimates are set at $250 million for 2016, $300 million for 2017, $350 million in 2018. And I can tell you that what the employees of the HDC have been telling me is that when they go out, the homeowners, the residents are telling them, you know, what took you so long? We want to own our own homes. I'm not sure what took place over the last 5 years. I think they were just concentrating on spending money. Also, in the area of recoveries, with respect to the rental agreements, we aim to reduce the delinquency rate. We've found that people still have the eat a food mentality. People still feel that the government giving them a rental unit means that they don't have to pay, and the government owes them that. We ain't gonna vote for the MP, we ain't gonna vote for the party, or they can't kick we out. In the next few months, you will hear of some casualties. You will hear of some indisciplined people. And some of the names will surprise you, and I won't mention that now. Another innovation that we at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, another innovation that we've had to implement is the PPP, the Private Public Sector Partnership. And simply what that is instead of the state funding all these developments, we're asking the private sector to come on board and to utilize private sector funds to ensure that our housing program continues. And you would be surprised. We have sent out our expression of interest, and we're still mulling over what the proposals that would have been sent in. And it's overwhelming. The private sector and many banks are with alacrity wanting to get involved in the state sector housing program. Of course, as I said, the main feature of this arrangement is for the HTC to access private sector capital for financial, managerial, and intellectual resources to bolster and expand its capacity, meeting the national housing demand. So, the private sector participant either comes with financing, or they bring their own lands, or they bring their labor and their construction capabilities. When they construct their units, the HTC will provide them with willing and ready home buyers, and that is how they will get paid. These partnerships will provide to be a viable option as the production target in the construction sector will positively impact our economy. I now turn to our strategic housing construction 2018. Now I have a constituent, one that I may not be so proud of, but he's almost a neighbor. And he has been going up and down talking about all the turn a sod yet, all the turn a sod yet. I just passed him in Phuket there, Mr. Rudal Munilal, or Dr. Rudal Munilal. I want to say to Dr. Munilal today that we have real sod to do. And starting next month, going on until the end of the year, we will be turning the sod to start officially our construction program. Next month, we will be turning sod at a place called River Runs Through It, that's in Malabar, where we expect to get 107 housing units out of that project. And we are no longer relying on the method or the plan of giving one contractor billions of dollars in work. What we are doing is we have invited 60 contractors to bid, and we will give contracts out to at least 15 contractors to contract those homes, to build those homes. So no contractor will build more than 10 homes at a time. And what that does is it truly develops our small to medium contractors, and it spreads the money around. We in the PNM believe in everybody getting a little bite out of the big pot, and that will truly ramp up our economy. There are a number of other strategic objectives that I want to talk about in the short time I have left. Is our electrification program. On assuming office in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, it came to my attention that many of our sites do not have street lights. And I really can't understand why. And there is no time to understand. What I have done is I have instructed the board at the HDC to immediately embark upon a program to bring street lighting to all the sites all across Trinidad and Tobago. Another complaint that we have been hearing is the absence of telecommunications providers in most of our HTC sites. That concerns me. Coming from the Ministry of Public Administration, I would have had charge over the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago and IGOV-TT. So I know the importance with respect to the development of our economy that telecommunication services have. And I have also directed the Board of Directors at the HTC to immediately speak to the vendors, TSTT, Digicel, and all of us, to embark upon a program to bring telecommunication services to all the sites all over Trinidad and Tobago. And lastly, let me just touch on Taradale Gardens. Because Taradale Gardens fall within the constituency of San Fernando East. And it is a place that I really hold dear. During our campaigning, we would have walked in Taradale Gardens, and it really feels like a forgotten development. The roads are bad, there aren't any street lighting, there aren't any green spaces, there is no play park, and there are lots of young children just running up and down in the road. Within the next few months, we will start a road paving exercise within Taradale Gardens. And what that will do, it will bring immediate relief to all the residents and their motor vehicles, and will also bring jobs to the people of Taradale Gardens. We've also started our street lighting program, and Taradale Gardens will not be forgotten. We've also embarked on, in the very early stages, we've also embarked on a program to bring green spaces to developments. We've been working in many HTC developments, and what is glaring, what is stark, is the absence of green spaces, recreational spaces for the residents to go and to sit in the greenery, in the environment, listen to the birds chirp, feel the breeze. We are going to embark on a program to bring green spaces, starting with Taradale and also in Current Hills, so that we will bring some relief to all the residents. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to reassure you that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is in good hands. Under this government and under the astute leadership of Dr. the Honorable Christopher Rowley. We continue working, and we will continue in our distribution of houses. There will no longer be any corruption with respect to the minister's discretion in the distribution of houses. We have 1,200 houses to distribute by year's end, and we will have approximately 5,000 by next year. So ladies and gentlemen, with those few words, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Mitchell, and we give him another round of applause. Being a brand new minister, you have done well so far. Now we have a question and answer segment, and I would like to ask former Councillor Sharon Rowley to assist with the mic. Oh, you have the mic? Okay. And get ready to answer to pose your questions on Minister for Lavantil Adrian Lloyds. Welcome to Santa.
I'm Marilyn Gatusa from Union Hall Gardens, and we are down there since maybe about 1996-97. However, our playing area, that is the place designated for the playing area, is more like a slope. I came out of teaching physical education, also curriculum, and I want to give back to my community. we have a thriving community council, and I've heard it repeatedly said by the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, that it takes a village to raise a child. And I always say, yes, it takes a village to raise a child, irrespective of the raising. We want to ensure that Union Hall Gardens remain a place where people want to come to live. There are a number of young boys out there with no place to recreate. Also, we are trying desperately to get a community center. We don't want a regional complex. We have the space, a community center. Help us to help ourselves. That's what we are asking. Help us to help ourselves, that we can keep Union Hall as it's going right now, good. The number of children out there are more boys than girls. I'm going to wrap up just now. But I want you to also want to say, to this date, we still have a sign saying NHA development. Nothing about HDC. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Clifton from Fernando. I have three quick questions here. The former administrative complex to teaching hospital is underutilized. I paid a visit there and I saw some of the floors that are not utilized. I want to know what are your plans for utilizing this space in conjunction with the hospital. Also, we have a pleasant California corner and the bypass that goes out four-story building. What are your plans for utilizing that space also? One more question to the Minister of Housing. In most of our areas, HTC older areas, there are some abandoned lots and buildings that are not being used. I want to know if with your help, new applicants can utilize those spots by using them and opening to these people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Mr. Chairman. A question to the Minister of Housing. I live in Bayview in Rowley, and there are a number of empty lots, vacant lots, and they're not being cleaned or cleaned. I don't know if people own them or if it's still owned by the HTC. If the ministry have any program in place to do that, to clean the vacant lots.
Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, other members of the head table, His Worship, the Mayor of San Fernando, Honorable Kazim Hussein, and Samantha Felix, Chairman of Bush West. I'm extremely gratified to, along with my constituency members, to show our appreciation to our Prime Minister under his astute leadership for running our country in the midst of this economic downturn, mass retrenchment, low oil and gas prices, and the list goes on and on. I must say that it is quite comforting to be hosting meetings of this nature where you are reporting to the constituents of San Fernando East, San Fernando West, Orange East, and Orange West, and the point of view on your plans and policies for delivering goods and services to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Ms. Felix,
yes.
One question.
Yes, one. I have a few questions. Yes. First question. Okay.
We only get one people a chance.
Yes. Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
We're going to move on.
Okay. One regarding the Bayview area, I must say that we need street lighting in that area, so I want to address that. Our housing minister to address that first.
Right.
Also, we have some streets. I know this is not the right forum, but we have a lot of streets in Orange West, in the Lowney area that need to be fixed. So that I would like someone to address it first.
All right.
And that's
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Each will answer the question. So please, the time is limited.
Good evening, all protocol observed. Jennifer Marichal, former councillor from Marlborough West. Madam Minister, I just want to compliment you on the good work that you are doing in your ministry. I used to represent an area called Bayshore in Marlborough. I would like to know, do you have any social workers that will go out in our communities? Because sometimes they go through your community, especially in Bayshore, and there are children home from school, and it's not as if they don't want to go to school, but they are single parents within the community, and they cannot afford to send the children to school. So I would like to ask you, Madam Minister, if you can consider having some that you just give us, so that they can better themselves and also their family. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
HBC Minister, and with the housing projects that's about to be started. I just want to ask what checks and balances would be put in place for plumbing issues, because with the last 3 contracts that went out, some of those houses were loaded with plumbing issues. And I'm hoping that that issue will not return with these new houses that are about to be built.
Thank you.
Good night to the Honorable Trustee Rowley, and also good night to the rest of the head table. I want to tell you thank you for the work that you are doing with improving Trinidad and Tobago. But into the work that you're doing, I would like to throw in the issue of dumping. Dumping is a menacing issue in our country, and I would like very much if you all can pay particular attention to that situation and what you will be doing concerning that situation.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Hello, my fellow leadership. First presentation, Sea Scouts. I think most of you are probably familiar with our scout group, or bugle band, or drums. And for those of you who don't, I'm sure at some point you have taken a dip by the original Scout House. In 2009, we did our duty to country, and we gave up the Scout House without any resistance so that the water taxi terminal could come to fruition and provide a convenient transport service to the public. We have done that. It's been 7 years. We've been promised correspondence to have a new home. We're not asking for any favors or any handouts, but it's something that is due to us. We begged, we borrowed, we stood in the rain, blocked gates, and for 7 years we still don't have a place to call our home. New development is important, I know, to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are asking the esteemed parliamentary representatives, the Honorable Rowley, Prime Minister, to please consider the home for first presentation Sea Scouts, long overdue, 7 years now. Thank you very much.
What I want to find out, what opportunities are given to the contractors in San Fernando, the catchment area of San Fernando. For the past year, development has taken place. I went to the board representative of San Fernando, East and West, finding out that asking kindly to have a caucus meeting to bring the contractors in San Fernando predominantly and tell us what plans that you all have for development that we'll be able to partake in contract. Now we see Sapa South built by the Chinese. We saw Maradana Stadium built by Hafiz Karamat, and even whatever housing by Hafiz Karamat also too, and the teaching hospital by King. San Fernando contractor has not gotten a proper opportunity to tender. What we are asking that you all need to come to us for a meeting and let us know when we can be able to meet with you all and find out what is on the table that we can participate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. 2 more questions. Next question. Down here.
Good night to the head table and all those who are in the meeting. My name is Anne-Marie Elbourne County, and my statement, the question is directed to the Minister of Social Development. I came in during the time that you were making your contribution, ma'am, so I am not sure whether you addressed my concern, but I will still air that concern. I haven't heard anything tonight about the situation of the elderly. I am retired from your ministry as a senior probation officer. And even though I am not with you all directly, I'm concerned about these people. Now, we would have heard a lot about abuse to the elderly. And the Home for Older Persons Act has been floating about somewhere. I don't know where it is, but in addition, it has not been proclaimed. This piece of legislation has been in existence even before the former government was in place, which is the People's Partnership. From what I understand, it would have been somewhere around
We got the question, and the Minister will address it.
What I want to know is when that piece of legislation
the Minister will address it to you.
Will be ascended to.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any question, please?
My question is Skinner Park. Is there any plans for Skinner Park? I've been from San Fernando for a long time. I live in San Fernando, and I've never seen or I've seen Skinner Park stay the same way, and the street, there's no improvement. The stars and the sportsmen that come to Skinner Park, I think Skinner Park deserves some attention. Thank you.
Okay, concerning the last question, in Skinner Park, when we took office at the San Fernando Corporation 2 years ago, we made a proposal and sent it to the last government. We have renewed that proposal and we sent it to the present Minister of Sport for his consideration and approval. So not to say we are not doing nothing, we are in office 2 years and some months, and we are working. Okay, so rest assured we will assist Skinner Park. Alright, so
the question related to whether they are social workers in the ministry. Yes, they are social workers, and at the National Family Services, we have social workers who can treat with this issue that you would have identified. So after the meeting, I will speak with you. You can give me some information so we will know directly where we can send those social workers. With respect to the question dealing with the elderly, the ministry still has its division of aging headed by Dr. Rouse, and we do in fact treat with all of the issues related to the elderly. The legislation that you would have referred to, it was presented to the Attorney General, and I believe it may form part of his legislative agenda, but I can confirm that subsequently.
Moving quickly, in treating with the old building in Pleasantville, we have a number of options that we can take. One of the options is to retrofit the building. A proposal has been made, and the cost to retrofit that building is $20 billion. I don't find that is value for money. The second option is to knock down the building and to put up a subsequent newer, more modern building. And then there is the third option. Because of the congestion in that area, to just knock down the building altogether and create a green space for the residents to enjoy. So we're reviewing all options, and pretty soon we will come to a decision. With respect to the vacant homes, trust me, HGC needs the money, and we will be refurbishing all those homes very soon so that we may allocate them. We also recognize that those homes are part of our inventory and they become vandalized the longer they remain vacant. So we have a program right now where we are refurbishing all those homes and we are allocating them. With respect to the overgrown lots, I'm not exactly sure where the lots occur, but we've had some challenges in funding our maintenance program. But as we allocate houses, as we convert mortgages,
more and more money is coming into our fold, and we will again ramp up our maintenance program. With respect to the plumbing issues, we recognize that quality assurance may have been a problem in the last few years. All right, we are concentrating on our quality assurance to ensure that all homeowners are given quality homes. With respect to the presentation, Sea Scouts House, I mean, I too used that house. I remember, Scout leader, when you used to take us out in the boat and dump us in the sea and cause us to swim all the way back. I'm not really sure, what are the details and the facts and the issues with respect to this, but we will be looking into it and we will get back to you. Thank you.
He has taken us to the success of winning elections, and though he inherited many problems from the outset, he has been decisive in steering Trinidad and Tobago towards progress. He has made sure that every constituent can feel the government working for them by holding meetings like these. He didn't just campaign and didn't disappear into Prime Minister's residence. He's here working for you. Make sure that he's part and parcel to all public concerns across the whole country. I am honored to share this stage with him tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Casdemosil of the City of San Fernando. Ladies and gentlemen, you were asked to stand not to welcome me, I'm sure. He was just making sure that you weren't falling asleep. It's close to your bedtime, so I won't keep you too long. But I hope that for coming out this evening, and those of you listening at home, you will have had the benefit of hearing up-to-date reports from two new ministers. The Minister of Social Development and Family Services and the Minister of Housing and Urban Development are two of the new people in the current cabinet. And I must say that as new ministers, they indicated to you they have a grasp of the job. And as leader of the cabinet, I feel satisfied that I could lose the experience and the flair of the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, and in half an hour, put on the Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, and he can report in that. But after all, it's only San Fernando. Always good, always ready. But let me acknowledge my former parliamentary colleague, Deputy Mayor Junior Negredo, all cabinet ministers, the members of parliament, members of San Fernando and visitors to San Fernando. I must apologize for not having enough chairs in here and so many of you standing for so long, but it's all in the interest of getting information and accurate information. But I say something to you, right? We have been in government now for a few months, and the demands on us will increase as we go forward. We have no complaints about that. But as a citizen, I want to say to you that it is very easy for government to come and government to go and government to come and government to go and individuals change office and nothing in the country changes substantially. That's possible and easy. And that might be okay if things have gone very well. So you leave well alone. But in our situation where so much has not been going right, some of it for some considerable time, and some of it have worsened in the recent past, there's a requirement for this country to get things right. And you see, as you set about to get things right, regardless of what you're going to do, there are very few situations where the decision will find favor with everybody. And in fact, Doesn't matter how bad the situation is, somebody is benefiting from it. I mean, there's an epidemic and people are dying like flies. Seems to have a broad smile on his face. So, understand as we go forward that you will hear voices of disagreement. And sometimes that contrary voice is ill-informed, self-serving, or downright malicious. It is for the government to ensure that the population gets direct and accurate information about your circumstance and the government's position and posture. And that's why we invite you to come out here this evening. And I'm so happy to see so many of you coming out here this evening and paying attention. And I have good reason to believe that there are tens of thousands of you at home listening to what the government has to say. Because we have a lot to say and we have a lot to do. And when you are properly informed, this properly informed national community will be able to make the best decisions regardless of whether you make them on election day or you make them in your household on the way to the grocery. And that is why I want to thank you all and thank members of my team for coming here this evening and putting before you what passes for government. But ladies and gentlemen, our circumstances aren't as bright as they used to be. But as I said to you, another basket case. And what is called for, particularly at this time, is good management of your affairs. And as leader of the cabinet and of the country, I am determined to rectify the numerous instances of misdirected expenditure in Trinidad and Tobago. And if we get success in that area, whatever we have coming to us as a people, as a country, will go further in treating with the issues of the country. You would have heard tonight from Minister Clifton that a decision has been made by the bank to increase the charge from 2.5 million to 8 million. All that means is the bank saying, I don't want this business to get out. That's what it means. So therefore the minister has to find another way to do it. Because if we pay that $5.5 million just to stay in the same place, the next thing that's going to happen, the bank will give you bad service because they want you out anyway. But what could $5 million do for you and the person you know down the road who needs $20,000? Or $5,000 or $1,000. So we have to do things differently. I told you last week I was in St. Joseph, and I mentioned to you how a national state company has spent over $1 million in the lead up to the last election. Two of them actually was NLCD and TDC. Spent over $1 million in a slander campaign against me as a opposition leader. I wasn't telling you this because I was afraid of the slander, because I could deal with that every Monday morning. But I was telling you so that you could have an idea as to how public monies can be spent in Trinidad and Tobago and nobody being held accountable. Nobody. And then you saw some newspapers. You saw, before that you heard former Prime Minister saying that something was some grand trouble when the Minister of Finance drew down some money from your account to service your business. She said, we treating the account like a brand trouble. Well, the brand trouble was at NLCD. And that is widespread all over the public sector. All over. So today, I've instructed the Minister of Finance to institute an audit at the National Lottery Control Board. And if there is any person or organization in there found to have received money under false pretenses, ask them to pay back. Because I warned you all before that if the top of the management of the country is corrupt, people who normally will behave properly underneath sees what's going on top. And then if the priest will play, who is me, and all of them stand up. Because what I've seen there, starting in 2013, I have every reason to believe that it was the tone and tenor of 2011 and 2012 that encouraged people to behave like that. Because they believe that they will get away with it. I know the hard part about it. They are getting away with it. Because you, the population, if you ask anybody in the country now what they think about the government and the opposition and so on, it's largely negative in many instances. Because you have seen, you know, you are aware, you have a sense, you have a feeling that some things have gone wrong. And you're asking, why isn't the government doing something about those people who have done those things? Well, let me explain something to you, fellow citizens. Authority in this country is segregated. While you vote to elect the cabinet, the government, the parliamentarians, there are two other arms of the state that you have no involvement in. You have no say whatsoever in the judiciary. None whatsoever. After a person is charged, arrested and charged, you have no say in that. You have to watch the wheels turn and hope that justice is served. Of course, you can influence the parliament by encouraging your parliamentarians to vote in a certain way or to carry a certain bill to the parliament. But in terms of acting against persons who have been deemed to have done wrong, the government and the cabinet as individuals in their office have no say. As a matter of fact, if tonight I say that Mr. So-and-so and Ms. So-and-so who did so-and-so should be arrested, I will be accused of interfering in the work of the Commissioner of Police. I'll be called a despot. I have been called a dictator. Because they're always looking for labels to put on me. I don't know what they have with Keith Rowley from Mason Hall and Jacob Martin West, but they're always looking for labels. But I'll tell you something. The government, the cabinet members that you elect, the most we can do is to ensure that the government intervenes to find out what is going on and to fix what is going wrong. And that's what Minister Krishna Kuban told me tonight. By doing what the minister can do in this finding out and this fixing, she was able to demonstrate to you that those people who couldn't come forward to identify themselves as being recipients of food card assistance, we are about to save $100 million. So you understand why I voted in the last election? $100 million right there. And the same thing, if Minister Mitchell had some time tonight, he will go into how we are going to save money on the housing construction program. Because the Treasury doesn't have the wherewithal to fund that program and give contractors billion-dollar budgets. But housing construction will continue. But he will tell you that when the PMM left office, the cost of the top range for an HDC house was $350,000. That was what it cost to build it. Government absorbed the cost of the infrastructure for the development and gave you a subsidy on the land, and you might have got that house for $300,000. Get a subsidy. Never mind you go off saying, the government never did nothing and the country hard never give nothing. You get a home, a subsidized home. And the minute you get it, in many instances, it's the best asset you and your family will ever own. But of course, by the time Manila left, an HDC house was being built for $1.3 million. And what we are doing now is ensuring that there's competition among the contractors so that you get the best price and you get value for money, and that kind of arrangement, the days for that are over. Over. I am not going to be the one to tell you that there will be no corruption. That will not be a statement I'll ever make, because human beings are always trying to get more than their fair share. And even in heaven, there was a fellow called Lucifer. So that is not a statement I will make. But I will tell you that the systems that we are trying to put in place should reduce the incidence of corruption, and at the level of the cabinet and the government, there will be no official sanction of state corruption. That's what I can tell you. Last election, we pointed out to you, a contract was awarded for health care. And the intention was that every one of us will have a health card. Good idea, right? And what that card is supposed to be all encompassing. It will have your medical record name, and whenever you go to get CDAP in particular, you can't go into 5 or 6 or 2 places and get the same medicine and so on and so on. To make sure that there's no waste and there's no corruption in the supply of medication. Good idea. We wanted to save money in CDAP and to make sure that there was no opportunity for corruption if the health card is operating. That contract was awarded just before the election. And immediately, many of you started getting vote camera on your private telephone numbers. But the two things were linked. That contract was for $30 million. And it was $30 million for a good idea if it had materialized. I'm advised by the Minister of Health that it has not materialized in any significant way. But more importantly, even if it had materialized as it was envisaged and paid for, there was no consideration for the maintenance of the system in that $30 million. That was a separate arrangement. $14 million a year. Had you not voted the PNM into office last September, that contract would have stood. But by having changed the government, that arrangement is not going to see the light of day. And if a health card system is put in place, it will be put in place with a modicum of honesty. I tell you, one of the big challenges we have as a government is who to trust. You just don't know who to trust. Because some of the very people who are supposed to engender trust in the society are causing you to lose faith. But you have done something that they didn't expect you to do. When they were carrying on like that, you elected a new government. Now what does the government do? The government is focusing on the problems in the country. Corruption is a problem. And we will deal with that along the way. All I will say about that is that if they have done all of this, and all of what you good, and they've left no fingerprint, no footprint, no soul print, well, more power to them. They're not in the parliament telling us, only talking about corruption, and you're not got nobody here. I don't know why they're telling us that. Go tell that to the Commissioner of Police. We have nobody to lock up, and we're threatening nobody. We are identifying that there are problems in the school system and education curriculum. And that is why we have gone ahead and put together a team of people. I would call them experts in education. Unfortunately for us the people, the Minister of Education is an expert in education, and we're fortunate to have him at this time working with that team who will review our school curriculum to ensure that what we set about to teach our children at the primary school level in particular is the kind of foundation that children should be having in 2016 to go forward into the secondary and the tertiary system. And if we do that, the outcome of that intervention during this period should see us trying to break the cycle of just having children pass through school and some of them coming out with great expectation of entitlement, unprepared for what's ahead of them. We need to intervene in the school system. The other system too of providing school books. Sounds good. I, more than anybody else, should know what education can do to an individual, to a family, to a country. So, when we had to intervene in the school books provision, it wasn't because we didn't want children to get school books. It is because there was significant waste and possible corrupt practice in there. And we are of the view that our children will not be any less educated if the books are not changed every 6 months. There are some people who have become authors by plagiarism, and they have a partner in the government system. And the competition for books, I mean, is a Vanity Fair. So we didn't go down that road last year. When I leave here tonight, I'm going home to read my cabinet notes that have come out tonight. And among those notes is the Minister of Education coming back about how they are going to set about to provide what is required school books for the next school term starting in September. We are going to do it and do it properly. But there was a period when this system was just another nipple on which certain mouths were fixed. Because there isn't a single area, and you can quote me on this, there isn't a single area where there was public money to be stolen where we have not found wrongdoing. From changing light bulbs in the school. And that is one of the biggest challenges that our government faces coming in and meeting the whole system permeated with wrongdoing. I met in the office of the Prime Minister a permanent secretary who was the subject of an audit that pointed to criminal conduct in an area where lives were lost by murder. And the last Prime Minister was protecting that Prime Minister in the office of the Prime Minister. And while that was going on, you were being challenged by such person that ever go to court. Have you observed that every ne'er-do-well in this country who should be dragged before the magistrate and sent down the road and threatening you with the court? Threatening you with the court. A place that they should be fearful to go. They're telling you that's where they want to go. Because I don't know, they figure once they get there, the matter will turn in their favor. I was in the office for about 3 weeks, and the requisite action was taken by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago post September 7th, and within 2 weeks, the relevant service commission had suspended that Prime Minister, that permanent secretary. What kind of action were we having in Trinidad and Tobago, where after 2 weeks of one Prime Minister, they get a suspension, but for the previous 2 years, was moonlighting in the Prime Minister's office. And today, we go to the Parliament, they make an announcement up front. They're not supporting anything that the government brings. But why are you surprised by that? Why? That is exactly what we expect to happen in the opposition. So we have to govern this country. We have to govern this country. And we will govern this country for your affairs on what votes the PLN have in the Parliament. Because the opposition has no intention for doing anything in this country except thief public money when they get into office. None whatsoever. Sometimes, you have to control yourself in trying to respond to them. Because they know that you know and you know that they know what they're asking you, what the answer is. But they're trying to provoke us into making unseemly statements. But you see, when we look at the situation, the classic example is the CCJ, where they take up position in government, and they got the headquarters of the Caribbean Court of Justice is in Port of Spain. And they lose an election, and they will not agree then to what they agreed to before. And then they came back in the government for 5 years, and then out of shame for their conduct, tried to give you the impression that they require a referendum that was never to come and not part of our law and our system. So the CCJ is there now for how many years? In Port of Spain, to our embarrassment and shame, while we have not access to the court as our final court of appeal. So why are you surprised that we carried the SSA bill to the Parliament? This is the bill that allows, for the first time, through law, certain specific authorities to listen to what criminals might be saying and doing and planning. Every country that's serious in today's world has that. And the technology is available for you to follow criminal conduct if you have a proper police service or other agencies of security. We in the opposition, this PLM led by me, we didn't only vote for the budget in 2010 of a different government, never happened in this country before, voted for the national budget. We voted for the interception of telecommunications bill, and in that bill, all the protections that are required to prevent abuse exist. And only the Commissioner of Police, the head of the Defense Force, and the head of the SSA could have authorized any eavesdropping in this country. If anybody else does it, once that law came into being, such a person is committing a crime. But the bill had only related to a few crimes, drug trafficking, drug dealing and so on, because it was driven by the whole drug trade. Subsequently, we realized that information is valuable and a lot of other crimes. So we come back to the Parliament, and all we did with the SSA Act was to add a certain number of other crimes that the agencies could monitor and eavesdrop on. The opposition crime blue murder, as though we're doing something so wrong. The question is, what kind of opposition is this that doesn't want the security services to follow those criminal actions? But as far as they're concerned, success is making the security services impotent. Because their biggest statement is, whenever the PNM is in office, crime goes up. So the PNM committing crime. You understand? That is their foolish argument. We now come to a law which we supported again that they brought into being, which was the bailout. As the opposition, we were required to stand up and make sure that that law which confined you to 120 days automatic jail, you know what it was? If you charge for a firearm offense, you automatically would not get bail for 120 days. And we took that to mean that the revolving door of bail and crime and bail and crime would abate a bit and would give the judiciary time to very quickly intervene, because you force the prosecutors to get the case within the 120 days, otherwise the person will not be qualifying for bail. We as an effective opposition had to be very vigilant, especially after Section 34. We had to be very vigilant to make sure that nothing was in there that could encourage and sustain abuse. It's not a law. But it's such a law that so infringes on rights that it carries a sunset clause, meaning it's for a specific period of time. Well, the problem has not been solved. In fact, the problem has worsened in many areas. But the law comes to an end in August. The Parliament goes on recess in early July. All of a sudden, when we go to the Parliament to extend this law for 2 years, to allow the security services and the judiciary to work and to allow people who infringe the law to get the same kind of treatment they were getting for the last 5 years, all of a sudden, those who created the law, those who asked for our support for the law, those who operated the law, all of a sudden have a problem. And they will not support it unless we negotiate with them. Well, I'm putting you on notice now. We have nothing to negotiate with those people. There is stronger language that can be used as a reserve for another day. If you could see our country washed in blood, gunmen all over the place, criminals choosing to do what they're doing in the most bold-faced way in this country, and you want to play politics with it, that's the matter for you and the people. What are we supposed to negotiate? What's to negotiate? All that's going to happen when they don't support it is that we go back to the condition before, where bail is given at the discretion of the judge or the magistrate. Simple as that. So if they think that will make their political career, try something else. Because what that law had done is to take away from the judge and the magistrate the jurisdiction of determining bail. That's you, but the Constitution says, the country's Constitution says, regardless of the offense, except, I think treason and murder, all of that. But outside of treason and murder, you are entitled to reasonable bail. Because the presumption of innocent and proven guilty is the basis of our jurisprudence. But we intervened and said, if you use a firearm because of the situation in the country, the abuse of firearms and the random killing and rampant violence, if you choose to get caught in that, you spend 120 days with no bail. If the opposition now says that, well, you should have bail, what's the problem? That's part of the country's governance. But I can't figure out what they want to negotiate. And even then, truth is not part of the makeup of the opposition. Because we knew that we required their support. So the leader of government business, when the amendment was laid in the parliament, the leader of government business communicated with the opposition chief whip. That is how it goes. The person in the parliament for the government who is handling the matter will relate to the opposition person who is handling the matter on their side. And that's done within the parliamentary system. The Attorney General who's bringing the amendment, he wrote to them indicating what's going on. Even before the parliament should meet, I get a letter from the opposition leader demanding a meeting with me and the cabinet, with her and her team to discuss what? When we are running a very organized government, unlike the last go around, in my government, ministers have responsibility. They assume that responsibility and they will be held accountable for their portfolios. So if there is to be contact between the leader of government business and the opposition chief whip, that is the avenue. And if there is to be contact between the Attorney General and the legal people on the other side, that is the civil way. That's how parliaments work. Not by the opposition leader trying to make yourself relevant and demanding that I need to do. To talk about what? To talk about what? Because the one thing I'm not going to be talking to her about, I see she put on a robe and walk into court. Two of them walk into the court with the robes and they gave themselves. Sit. One, the former Attorney General, he and the government knew that the law that we passed in the Parliament to protect children in these homes, St. Jude's homes and Mary's home and so on, we passed a law, and the law has within it the requirement for these homes to be licensed. And certain standards have to be met because the law was raising the standards. So we passed the law to provide better care for these children. After the law was passed, there was a requirement for the state to upgrade these places. They knew that because they brought the law to the parliament, we debated it. So they knew what had to happen. The law was passed unanimously. And then there was a requirement after for the law to be proclaimed, which means that whenever we were ready, the cabinet would tell the president to proclaim the law and bring it into force. What did they do? The same people who brought the law, who knew what had to be done, They proclaimed the law knowing full well that we were not ready with the upgraded places. And then they're going to court now and telling the court that we are holding children in unlicensed places, and the court is paying those children those $400,000 in damage, and God knows how much to the lawyers. The lawyers making a living doing that. And you ask yourself, what manner of people is this? You remember a fellow called Gibbs? Commissioner of Police Gibbs? Another one called Iwansky? I point those $12. We in the opposition say it's a bad idea. We don't mind supporting a deputy commissioner to bring something to the table, but to have a foreign commissioner who is a stranger to our culture or behavior or problem is going to fail. They said no. As a matter of fact, they accuse us of xenophobia. Many of you know what that word means? It means afraid foreigners. Xenophobia. And when they told us that, we said, go ahead. Halfway through Mr. Gibbs and Iwansky term, they fired them and they paid them millions to go home. Since then, we have not had a proper commissioner of police in office. And this government went right through its term, not lifting a finger to have a proper appointment done of a commissioner of police. And worse, the change that was required to bring that about, we in the opposition said for all those years, we will support it, just bring it to the parliament any Friday evening, and we will support it, bring the amendment, and let the country proceed to appoint a commissioner of police. It has not happened. And you have to ask yourself, why? And when we became government with your support, you the people saw the need to change the government. One of the campaign issues we held up to you was the same issue. And we said to you, put us in office and we will take steps to appoint the commissioner of police. Well, we did what we could have done. We changed the order so that it now allows the Police Service Commission to ask the DPA to find, don't get confused, but this is the system. The Police Service Commission is now to ask the DPA to find a company to invite applications for commissioner of police. This has been done now for God knows how long. And it's moving like watching molasses flow. But the interesting thing is, the said Prime Minister who oversaw the last period of nothing happening is now going to the court to try to prevent this government from appointing a commissioner of police. What do you make of that? All I know is that we have not improved our circumstance in crime fighting in this country. There are many people in this country who are about to give up hope that the criminals have the upper hand of the system. And that many people live in fear, and the frequency of violent crime in this country is unacceptable. And you can hold the government responsible for that, because the government is responsible for your safety and your security. What the government is not responsible for is going out there and making full use of the resources available in the crime fighting effort. Or, once we pass the regulations out, the appointment of a commissioner, the government has no say in the matter whatsoever. So we have to sit here and look at it not happen, and you sit there saying the government ain't doing nothing. The government has no power in the matter because responsibility is segregated. And I'm not asking for any power to do that. I'm simply asking for people to do their jobs, because you are dying in the streets and the job not being done. As a government, I've moved with alacrity to ensure that the National Security Council functions. Because you had a country in the face of all that crime wave where the National Security Council was not functioning, and that half of the cabinet were members of the National Security Council. Like people were asking to get on, just go on National Security Council. But since we came into office, we have a proper National Security Council chaired by the Prime Minister, It includes the Attorney General, the Minister of Finance, and a couple of the ministers, and we meet with the other arms of the state involved in National Security Council. Because National Security Council is supposed to be a small unit of people overseeing what the country is doing in national security. Not half of the cabinet that they're going to have party with somewhere. Now, the next thing that we do is to ensure that everything that we can afford is made available to those who are out there to do the job. And we meet on a regular basis, and we made some significant improvements. But I will say no more at the moment. I will wait to see how the days and weeks unfold. But I will say to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, there comes a time when I will say to you that you can't hold the cabinet responsible for the state of affairs while not holding the obstructionists accountable. Because there are people in the system who are obstructing any progress that we'll make in this crime fighting matter. So, we move on from there. In the health sector, let me tell you how it goes in the health sector. An old man goes to the hospital, the public hospital, where you are paying good money for certain services provided. He has a problem and he's given an appointment for way down in the year. The man is somebody known to me. So he appeals to me as Prime Minister in his desperate situation to see whether the system can be more humane. I intervened. I might get fired for that. I intervened. And I called the Minister of Health and I asked him whether it is possible for the system to become a little more responsive. The Minister of Health intervened and the system promised to be a little more responsive, and he brought his appointment forward a little bit. And the man was grateful and happy. But he goes back to the system, and the system tells him, can't be done. But if you come by me, down the road, it can be done now. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you this so you will understand some of the problems that we are facing and some of the decisions we're going to have to make. And that is why I anxiously await the report of the Welsh committee that we put in place early in our tenure to review this whole question of the delivery of health care in Trinidad and Tobago. We just can't go on this way. Because what we will find is that we're spending more and more money on the school system and getting less and less education to the point where nowadays some of our brighter students can't talk English. And then in the health system we'll be spending more and more of the scarce money we have and getting less and less health care. What we're trying to do is not to punish anybody, not to be reckless, but to try to get the best value for the money spent by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So you will see it in the Ministry of Family Services. You will see it in the Ministry of Housing. You will see it in the judiciary, in the AG's office, sorry. You will see it in the education system, you will see it in the health system, and you will see it in the Ministry of Works as well. All around, because we know that given what we are facing, the best way to approach the current problem is to find out where there's waste, where there's corruption, where there's inefficiency, and deal with that at the source. So, as we go forward, you will see the government encouraging certain developments, because we can't just say, okay, we're going to fix waste and corruption and then we'll have all the resources required. No. Waste and corruption We will deal with those in the context of where we are, but we need to grow the economy as well. We need to grow the economy. And I am among those who believe that this country has a bright future. We're going through a bit of a tough time now, but it's not going to last forever. And if things go well, that future that we had before will still be there to be had. We want to encourage citizens to be responsible at the personal level. And of course, if you know anybody with a $7 food card and a degree and they work in Hollis police. You know what goes on with those food cards? I was in Tobago for the last THA election. And the week of the election, the UNC moved in to the headquarters, a large number of Trinidadians. And they came to penny savers in grab in the yellow jersey, shopping with food cards. I raised it on a platform in Tobago. It's a lie. Then Jack Warner, who was leading their campaign in Tobago, ceased to be the chairman of the UNC, came inside the parliament and told the parliament, even after all that, they bring back boxes of food cards from Tobago after the lost election. That's how the food cards are operating. And you heard tonight, one of my colleagues said something about every minister, every MP getting how much food card? But he made a little mistake. He left out the word suppose. Every MP was supposed, according to the system they were operating, to get these 50 food cards a month. We in the PNM knew nothing about it. It's when 6 months after they were operating that, we realized that they had some policy of giving MPs 50 food cards a month for their constituents. First of the beginning, we don't believe that parliamentarians should have cash. That's what the card is, eh? It's a cash card. We don't believe it's good governance for parliamentarians to be handling government cash and giving who they want and who they don't want. But secondly, it was 6 months after this was going on that we knew it was going on. I had to write them and ask them, where are the food cards for Diego Martin West? And then they sent 50 to the office. I said, what is 50 for the last 6 months? That's 300 food cards by $700 or $500. To this day, they never answered. You know why? Because those food cards ended up in the hands of people who were not authorized to have government assistance or government money. So I'm not surprised today that there's a new government in office. And I, according to the principles I subscribe to, I have warned off every member of this government to have nothing to do with handling government food cards. That is the job of the public servants in the social welfare department, where persons will be screened and be determined to qualify for the food cards, and once they qualify for it, they must get it. And if they don't qualify for it, then they shouldn't get it. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. The abuse was astounding. One owner of a supermarket, shall remain nameless, was telling a friend recently that that chain of business is down $12 million a month as a result of the tightening up in the food card. You want to understand what's going on? That is just one market chain. There are about 3 or 4 supermarkets in the chain. And that the effect of tightening up and the leakage of government money shows up in that way. So that is why we have to do things differently. Today, I had the opportunity of spending the day out about 100 miles southeast of where we are here, where BHP, Shell, and BP are breaking new ground. The first well to be drilled in our deep water province is underway. I know there are those who feel that we should not look to the hydrocarbon sector for anything, but the lifeblood of this country is the hydrocarbon sector. And we always maintain. And what we need to do is to do the most and the best in that area and do other things in other areas. So, I spent the day out there being marveled at technology. The drill ship that is doing that program of drilling 3 wells is one of the marvels of modern technology. Cost $1.2 million a day. So you understand why those with deep pockets are the ones who can go in the deep water. Because after, that well should take almost about 80 days to drill. $1.2 million per day. And God forbid that the hole is dry. So we, as a praying people, let us keep our fingers crossed that as we search this new province, that we will be successful in finding oil and gas. These are 3 wells, and because the area is so new and the challenge is so great, it will be a watershed development if we are successful out there. We need to do more in agriculture. We need to change our diet and eat more of what we grow. And we need to pay attention to lifestyle diseases so that we don't encourage expenses where expenses can be avoided if only we behave differently. And of course, there's some things we can do in Trinidad and some things we can do in Tobago. And it's my intention as a Tobagonian to bring Tobago as a major player in the Caribbean tourism destinations. And of course, as I told you before, if the angel Gabriel come down, it has some of them who will fall to the wings. So we expect that there will be those who will have a naysaying about it, especially if they perceive that success in these areas would mean doom for them politically. But we will not surrender the possibilities of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You, the people, have done what you had to do. You put us in office. You've given us responsibility, and we intend to discharge that responsibility with respect and with care to ensure that we impact on your circumstances. And it's against that background that I can tell you that the local government reform program is underway. Much of what you raised this evening are issues that will be taken up in the new local government reform. The elections will be held this year. We are now drafting the legislation to come out of the consultations that we've had with you. That draft will come out for further consultation. We'll go to the polls showing you what we intend to do. And you, the people, will decide who you will support. And if you want them back, you can have them. But if you want change, change for the better, change for good governance, change for honesty in office, change for hard work, change for self-respect, and change for accountability. If you want that, stay and work with the PNL.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister, for those words of wisdom that you gave to us and for your enlightenment of what is taking place in the government and the country. I would like to thank our listening audience for being so attentive as we stay to the end. And on behalf of the People's National Movement, I would like to wish the Muslim community Ramadan Mubarak. I want to thank you all for being a good audience. I would like to apologize once again for the standing audience and those who are outside. And stay tuned for our next meeting. Should be next week. You will be informed of our next meeting, and you need to come out and listen like how you listen to Minister Coburn and Minister Mitchell, and of course our Honorable Prime Minister. So thank you very much, and have a safe drive home. The policy conference will be held on the 26th of June at this venue from 5 p.m. and you all are all invited on the 26th of June